Hello and welcome to the Korean Beauty Show podcast. I'm your host, Lauren Lee, founder of Style Story, where you can shop, learn and explore the world of Korean skincare, and your guide to everything you need to know to perfect your Korean beauty routine at home. So for today, I wanted to discuss a topic that is very spoken about in Korean beauty. And we've touched on a whole lot of different issues around it before and a lot of the ingredients and things like that, but we've never actually had an in-depth discussion on the show about Hanbang skincare and what it actually means, the kind of ingredients that are used, the principles it's based on, and probably most importantly, if you're thinking about actually going out and buying these products, whether they really work and whether they do what they say. So I have done an in-depth analysis. This is an area of the industry that I have, been familiar with, obviously, over the years. I've worked with a lot of different brands that do have Hanbang as their core philosophy, or at least their core marketing principle. And I'll get into that in a little bit more detail. But this is a very big area of the industry, particularly in Korea itself. And I want to go into a little bit more about why that is and touch on some Korean cultural points that you probably won't be familiar with unless you are Korean or maybe you've spent a lot of time here or studying it. So first things first is I thought it might actually help to start out with a definition because this in Korea itself is a little bit contested. But I actually had a look in the Kugo Sajeon, which is the Korean dictionary in Korean, and they define it as 한방에서 쓰는 약재의 성분이 들어있는 화장품. And that basically means cosmetics that contain medicinal ingredients that are used in Oriental medicine. That is the official definition of 한방 taken from the Kugo Sajeon. So I think for most Koreans, 한방 is similar to Han-yak, and that is Oriental medicine. So Han-yak, yak being medicine, so Oriental medicine. And it really looks holistically at health. So health starting from the inside of the body and to the outside. Korean traditional medicine is practiced alongside Western medicine here in Korea. Most people will have a local Korean medicine doctor, and pretty much every neighborhood has one. I myself have one that I go to as well, and have gone to for quite a few years at this point. I originally started going to a honey one is what they're called, which is basically just the place where the doctor practices Oriental medicine. You go to a honey one and they do all sorts of kind of things. They can make up prescriptions for traditional ingredients for you in, like a herbal sort of drink. Very, very earthy flavors, quite bitter a lot of the time. They also do acupuncture and things like that. And it is a whole field of study here. So I guess this style of cosmetics is very closely related to these principles as well, the kind of principles that are practiced at the honey one and that come from Eastern medicine, Oriental medicine. So a lot of Hanbang brands really believe that the main goal of Hanbang cosmetics is to restore the overall skin function rather than just be limited to, the external causes of the skin conditions and skin concerns. So they often look at more about the combination and processing methods of the raw materials and emphasize that as opposed to focusing on the efficacy of one raw material. But similarly to the kinds of debates that you will hear going on in Western medicine, there is the same kind of confusion here in Korea around the efficacy of Hanbang cosmetics. And, organic cosmetics, are they inherently better? Do the ingredients perform differently on the skin? And of course, the answer when it comes to most of these things is not necessarily. So I wanted to go into that in a little bit more detail and discuss some of the marketing points, the key ingredients and things like that you will see mentioned in and around Hanbang Cosmetics. And then also look at, some of the issues with it more generally, some of the popular brands, all of those things I'm going to cover off on that today. So look, I am obviously not an Oriental medicine specialist. What I've managed to pick up from it is obviously through my own experiences, going to my local Haniwan, having treatments from the doctor there and speaking to him, and then also reading up on the principles of Oriental medicine. And there are some differences between Chinese traditional medicine and Korean, so I'll go through those as well. So in general, broad sweeping over simplification, but the main principles of Oriental medicine really are that our bodies respond to the environment around us. Fairly uncontroversial, you would think. That kind of, I think, goes without saying, that our body knows how to heal itself. That all of the different parts of the body are connected. You may have seen like facial mapping diagrams and things like that floating around online, and that will say, if you're breaking out on your forehead, then that's connected to this part of the body. But that in and of itself is a principle of Oriental medicine, that the parts of the body are interconnected. Yin and yang are very well-versed principle in Asian cultures in general, which is the interconnectedness of the opposite forces. So that's another principle of Oriental medicine. And then also the concept that outside factors affect balance in the body. And so when you go and get diagnosed by a professional, what you'll notice is they'll tell you your body's, internal mechanism, because there are different types of bodies, and some people run hot, some people run cold, these kind of things. So myself, I was told that I have a lot of yo, which is fever or heat in the body, and that is definitely true. I know that from, the conversations I've had with Western doctors as well. It's inflammation, right? Internal inflammation. So a lot of the medicines that I was prescribed when I went to the doctor were to try and bring that down, bring that temperature and that inflammation down from within the body. So in terms of the key differences between traditional medicine and then Korean Oriental medicine, is that there was, I guess, a different source document for the Korean ones, and that is the Dongi Bogam, and that was actually written in the 15 to 1600s by a court physician, a very famous court physician known as Ho Jun. His name is sometimes also translated to Ho Kyun, I believe. But he was on orders from the king. It took him 16 years to write down, all of the different prescriptions, the herbs used and things like that. So it is one of the classics of Korean culture, the Dongi Bogam, and it is known in English as the mirror of Eastern medicine. So it has a lot of value, obviously, for the medical world, but it also gives a really good snapshot about what was going on philosophically in Eastern Asia at the beginning of the 17th century. And the underlying message of the Dongi Bogam is that it is possible to keep the body in good health by maintaining its different energies. So everything in balance. And I guess one of the things that Hojun was very famous for is that back in Korea in those days, being a very classist society, you had the royal family at the top, and then the Yangban, who were, the very well-to-do people connected usually to the royal family, and then you have the commoners. And for a lot of the traditional medicine that had been being performed at the time, it was based on really rare and expensive ingredients that only wealthy people had access to, whereas he actually went a bit further than that and wrote down the names of herbs and whatnot that commoners could get their hands on to make medicine more accessible. So that is why this piece of literature is so important. And from that document's time onwards, there was this acknowledgement that a lot of diseases stem from the skin, and that skin beauty is important also because it reflects the inner health. If the skin is not healthy, then it's usually because there's something underlying going on there. And I guess, so that is, there are a couple of differences between the Chinese tradition and then the Korean tradition. And there is a big, big difference between how medicine and sickness is, looked at in the West versus in the East. So in the West, treatment is, it really is all about treating the disease. So if someone becomes sick, we treat it. Whereas in Oriental medicine, there's this dual role of reinforcing the prevention and treatment as well. I've seen this even, so I've lived in Korea now, coming on to, so it's 7.5 years, and we have a very, very robust and really fantastic healthcare system that everyone in Korea can access. You have to be living here, obviously, not just anyone, and you can see this coming into it, this whole idea of prevention. Every 2 years, everyone in the country that is, paying into the National Health Insurance Scheme is given a full medical checkup. And that is to check for everything from cancers to, common things that crop up so that they can be caught in the beginning before they become really big problems later on down the line. And it's just not the system that we have, certainly where I'm from in Australia, where it really is, it's hard to get into a lot of specialists and doctors. You have to wait ages to get your results back. In Australia, if you go and have a blood test, you might not get the results of that blood test back for a week or 2 weeks, whereas that's just unheard of here in Korea. If I need to go in for a blood test, I'll have the results back within a few hours. Usually within 2 hours. So I've got the results right there to go and see the doctor. So it's just a very different approach, and prevention and treatment really do go hand in hand. And that is a fundamental principle of Eastern medicine as well. So then we come on to Hanbang itself, Korean cosmetics, these traditional cosmetics, and what actually are they? So there is actually a definition, albeit a very ambiguous one. So the Ministry of Food and Drug Safety actually looked to put some guidelines in around labeling and advertising for these products all the way back in January 2012. So they actually defined it as cosmetics that are used to manufacture herbal medicines according to, and then they list several books and guides. So this is the translation into English, but the Korean Pharmaceutical Exhibition, the Korean Pharmaceutical Standard Book, the Temporary Regulations on Existing Chinese Medicine, so official books. And the herbal medicine books, they've got, the Dongi Bogam, obviously a very important one, and then other ones as well. So they list where the medicines should come from, and then they also say that herbal ingredients contained in 100 grams of cosmetics should be converted into raw materials, and the combined weight should be more than 1 milligram. So what that really means in practice is that as long as 0.001% of the ingredients in the 13 herbal medicines listed are used, then you can advertise them as Oriental medicine cosmetics, Hanbang cosmetics. So 0.001% is not a large amount. And, you might go, well, that sounds super dodgy. I think in reality, it is not uncommon for cosmetic brands to have ingredients at that kind of percentage and still be advertising their effects. The efficacy of cosmetics in general is not proportional to the content of active ingredients. There's a lot more that goes into it. But there are some issues with that I'll go into later. But there is a definition, there are regulations around it, but you can see that it is not a super high threshold or a super high bar. 0.001% of the total formula needs to comply with the existing herbal medicine books. So that is the basic definition as given by the MFDS. So, in terms of some of the ingredients, the Korean herbal ingredients that you will often see being touted as good for the skin, I'll start off with the most obvious one, which is red ginseng, Hongsam, as it's called in Korea. And this is a very effective herbal ingredient. It is very revered. It's the kind of thing that you will often get given as a gift, particularly around important holidays, because it has a lot of different benefits. It comes in capsule, liquid format, all different kinds of formats, and it is often included as a cosmetic ingredient as well, and it has studied benefits, data that actually backs up its efficacy for the skin. Then there is just, of course, ordinary ginseng, which is not the same thing as red ginseng, but also has different properties. It's said to strengthen immunity, to keep your skin healthy, anti-inflammatory, and antioxidant. That also comes in capsules, powders, teas, lots of different formats, and it is sold at a lot of different price points, which have to do with the quality of the raw ingredient itself. Another one that a lot of our listeners will be familiar with if you are interested in Korean cosmetics is Mugwort. And Mugwort itself plays a very important role in the history of Korea. It actually appears in one of the founding myths in Korea's history. And Mugwort in general promotes blood circulation, and that obviously can make your skin healthy. In addition, in history in Korea, it was also crushed with garlic, mixed with honey, and spread onto the face. It was thought to have a lot of different benefits. You'll see it in a lot of, it's in everything in Korea. You can eat it, you can drink it, you can, you can make mugwort cake, like mugwort latte I've seen, and then it comes in cosmetics as well. So a very, very popular ingredient, a local ingredient here in Korea. Another one is licorice, and that one is generally considered to have a whitening or brightening effect on the skin. It can also reduce inflammation. And in Oriental medicine, they generally tend to use the root of licorice, and it can be boiled in tea, taken as medicine, lots of different ways to do it. Some other ones that you might not be as familiar with in terms of ingredients include jujube, pomegranate. That's another one that has good antioxidant action. Turmeric, which is also an anti-inflammatory as well. And turmeric is said to be effective for a lot of different skin diseases, dermatitis, sensitive skin, atopy, or things like that. Anything that's looking for those antioxidant and antibacterial effects on the skin. White tea is another really good one because it is rich in catechins, so it has a good antioxidant effect. Hansamin is another one that contains various ingredients, ginseng, koryo red ginseng. That's another one that you'll commonly see used. One that is called Korean angelica, and that's usually digested, but that one is known for its role in supplying moisture and nutrients to the skin. So lots and lots of different ingredients, more so than the ones that get a lot of airtime, and incorporated in lots of different ways, not just in cosmetics that you're applying to your face, but in different teas and potions and things like that. That the doctor might actually prescribe to you. So they're the kinds of things you will see if you start dabbling around in Hanbang. Now, famous Korean Hanbang brands. I think this is one of those areas where there is a really big differentiation depending on the market. So in Korea itself, in addition to the really famous ones like Seolbasu and the history of Who, other popular local ones include Charm Zone, Koreana, Suryohan, which is an LG household and healthcare brand, Baegokseng and Donginbi. They are all popular in Korea. There are more. There are lots of different ones. Then you've got the ones that are trending and popular in China, which have changed a lot over the years. The ones that are popular in Southeast Asia. And then these days, lately, there are different ones that are popping up that are popular overseas. I'm thinking brands like Beauty of Joseon that advertises themselves as Hanbang, Pyeongkang Yul, and even Misha over the years has had various Hanbang style lines. Chogongjin was one of theirs for a few years ago. they've had lots of different ones over the years. So there are different brands that are trending in different markets. Historically, the market for Hanbang Cosmetics has been dominated by Amore Pacific and LG Household and Healthcare, which is unsurprising considering that they are the two biggest conglomerates that play in this space. They have a lot of different brands under their umbrella. And the other thing to note about the growth of Hanbang in Korea itself is that the domestic market really has been developed mainly through human sales distribution, so door-to-door sales, tele sales. That's another key way that a lot of older Koreans, not really old, but just maybe of, my mum's generation, for example, do watch a lot of the home shopping on TV, and a lot of brands are sold and make a name for themselves through home shopping. So that has been the traditional way that Hanbang Cosmetics have developed and been sold. Now, in terms of why this industry is succeeding, why we're hearing more about it, one of the key reasons is that the government has given a lot of support to this. They've given support for research and development. They have increased the ratio of their investment. In particular, in addition to Hanbang, they have also invested a lot in fermented cosmetics. So these are, some of the reasons why this branch of the industry is getting more attention, is because it has been heavily invested in by companies, private companies, and also by the government. So that's why we're seeing and hearing more about it, and hearing more about it in countries that might not be as familiar with the concept of Oriental medicine. I think I've mentioned before that for a lot of these ingredients and the concepts, they were historically a much easier sell in countries that had a shared cultural history and heritage of using Oriental medicine practices. But these days, everything's going global, and the brands that once upon a time used to focus all of their attentions on the Chinese market are now looking to break into Western markets. So these kind of things will need to be explained to, foreigners, I guess, people that aren't familiar with them, in a way that they can really understand. And the government has been a supporter of that as well. Now, I did say that I would mention some of the issues with Hanbang Cosmetics, and I think it goes without saying from the definition that I shared with you before that the regulations themselves are kind of vague. There aren't any specific regulations on herbal medicines. Specifically, it just is that requirement that you need to have 0.001% of the ingredients in the 13 herbal medicines above, and then you're able to advertise your products as Hanbang products. The other bone of contention for a lot of people in the industry is that there are no country of origin labeling requirements. So, some people say that, well, if it's a Hanbang product, shouldn't it be using Korean ingredients or ingredients of Korean origin? And that is not the case. To keep costs down, a lot of ingredients are imported from places like Southeast Asia and China, where they use those ingredients, but they are cheaper than the ones that are sourced domestically. So that is another thing that some people have a bone to pick about. The other thing is that obviously only 1 milligram per 100 grams is added to the ingredient. So, it's a small amount potentially of the effective ingredient, and it obviously hasn't then been tested by the MFDS. So, some people say, well, is it really just a marketing term? And I mean, yes, obviously it is a marketing term. But, so many different industries and so many different parts of the global beauty industry are really no more than marketing terms anyway. It's similar in respect of organic products. A lot of products that are organic, because the definitions are also vague and ambiguous, what does that really mean? You will hear people having debates about that as well. So the other big thing is that few of these herbal ingredients have been recognized as functional cosmetics, and that is because in a lot of the cases, the scientific data is is vague or non-existent. So that can be a problem, because when you use the name Hanbang itself, it can give consumers the impression that the ingredients have been proven to some extent. When you think of medicine, you think of something that has a lot of scientific data backing it up to show that it actually does what it says it's going to do, but that's not necessarily the case. That is not unique to Hanbang. That is the same when it comes to organic cosmetics, even functional cosmetics. There's a lot that you can say about your functional cosmetics in Korea without having subjected them to tests. So, why has this come about? Some people say, well, it's obviously the government just trying to protect and foster this part of the industry, and that's probably also true. Requiring everyone to prove the efficacy of all of the claims they're making will obviously drive up costs for consumers as well. But the reality is that there is a lack of scientific research around a lot of the ingredients, and really what they're doing is just using herbal cosmetics as a concept rather than a data-driven or proven strategy. So some of the local manufacturers here have put their hat in the ring and said, we want to actually research this a lot more and, develop the herbal cosmetics market. So there's talks about people doing that, but this is a common criticism that you will see leveled against some brands that are making claims. And look, the MFDS does crack down on people making claims that they can't make. The red ginseng or the anti-aging claims around ginseng are a big one. Companies will get in trouble for, going further than they can. If it's a company that's only using cultivated ginseng and they're making claims that should only be made about, wild red ginseng, then there have been instances in the past where the MFDS will crack down on them. So look, there are some, topics of conversation, I guess, in the industry about all of these different things, about the fact that the regulations are ambiguous, about the fact that a lot of this really is just a marketing concept more so than a proven functionality of the cosmetics themselves. But this is a growing part of the industry, and when it comes to ingredients like, for example, mugwort and ginseng, some of them do actually have some good data behind them. Whether the individual product itself works in the way that is being claimed is obviously a very different proposition, and that depends on a whole lot of different things, including, the formulation, how it's put together, the quality of the ingredients, all of those kind of things. So it's not just as simple as saying that just because a product has ginseng in it that, it's going to work in a particular way for your skin. A lot of the Hanbang products tend to be a little bit more expensive, not always, but often that will be because of the various methods of extraction that they need to use. If they're fermenting things, if it's, extracted only from a particular region or whatnot, that all takes longer, which does drive the costs up. But this is a very interesting part of the Korean beauty industry. I don't think it's often spoken about in a whole lot of detail. People just kind of gloss over it, and it's basically like, oh yeah, it's just all medicine based. And that's not entirely true, as I think you can probably tell from this conversation. This habit that people have of linking Hanbang to Hanyak, which is the actual medicine itself, is not as straightforward or clear cut as some of the brands would have you believe. And a lot of their time they're riding on this cultural tradition and the heritage of Eastern medicine itself, and just sort of, parlaying that over into their products, knowing that people have, for example, a positive look or a positive view on ingredients like ginseng and things like that. So look, I hope this discussion was interesting, entertaining. I hope that you learned something new that you didn't already know before. If you would like to know more, if this is something that you are interested to know about, come and find me and let me know. I just thought that we haven't discussed this at length in any any great detail really looking into it. So I wanted to just run through some of the things that I have learnt in my time living here and pass that on to you in case that's of interest to you. And if it is, I would absolutely love it if you would share this episode with someone that you think, maybe you've got someone that you know that absolutely loves, a Hanbang product, or, is just interested in different ways that people are making skincare products. This is a particularly Korean way, I think. And yeah, it is an interesting part of the Korean beauty industry. So that is just a few little things that I wanted to discuss with you. I'm going to finish it up there for today. I will be back in your ears next week with our regular news and updates segment, and I look forward to catching up with you then. And in the meantime, I will see you on stylestory.com.au.